Hello there and welcome to the Whale Festival. This is part 3. It's fun to be here while learning about why whales are so important in the health of our oceans. Go to WDC's North America YouTube channel to see parts 1 and 2. And stay tuned at the end to learn about the giveaway we're doing with Ocean Soul, where you could win one of those vibrant sculptures made from recycled flip-flops. Today, we're going to have whale experts answering your questions. We had people all over the United States send us questions and beyond, including Nottingham, United Kingdom. We have 2 whale experts with us today. First, I want to introduce you Monica Pepe, who's WDC's Conservation Education Policy Manager. Hi, Monica. How are you?
Hi, Douglas. I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Great to see you. I haven't seen you in a while, so it's good to be face to face.
Agreed. Yep.
All right. Well, here's question 1 coming up.
Okay.
How do whales sleep?
Well, this is actually one of my favorite questions to answer because it's something so bizarre to us, something that is pretty different from what we do. So whales don't sleep the way that we do. They actually just do something that's really a resting state. So they can't fully sleep and be unconscious, more or less, the way that we are, because they have to think about every single breath that they take. So whales are mammals. They are air breathers. So they have to take breaths regularly, just the way that we do. So that part is similar. But you and I are breathing, and everybody out there that's watching this, we're breathing constantly and not thinking about it. And that's because we are involuntary breathers. Our bodies just know to breathe, so we don't have to think about it or put a lot of thought or energy into it. Whales, however, are what we call voluntary breathers, which means that they have to think about every single breath that they take. So if they slept the same way that we did, they would not be awake enough to think about breathing, and they wouldn't breathe. So they rest instead. And what research has shown is that whales can actually rest half of their brain at one time. So they're still just awake enough that they remember to breathe. They stay very close to the surface when they're in this resting state so that they don't have to move too far or use too much energy. And that behavior is what we call logging. And the whales basically, it's pretty straightforward. Whales just kind of look like a log floating on the water surface when they're resting. So that's as close as they get to sleeping in the context that we think of sleeping.
About how far down in the depth, depending on species, do they log?
Well, that's a good question, and one that we actually don't really know the answer to, because we can only see, especially in areas like here off of New England, where you can't really see too far down in the water. Once the whale's below probably about 10 feet or so, you can't really see them. So they could be further down than that and logging, but the times that I've been out on the water and seen whales logging, they're usually just under the surface, so within that first foot or 2.
Wow. Okay. Question 2. Let's take a look. Are whales scared of the boat I was on when I went whale watching?
That's another good question, and I do really appreciate that whoever submitted this was thinking about whale watching from the whale's perspective, because that is important. The truth is that we don't really know what the whales are thinking at any given time, which is understandable, although a little bit frustrating for us as whale researchers. So we don't know if whales are scared or what they're thinking or how they're feeling. What we do know from watching them over the years and having a number of interactions with them on different vessels is that we do sometimes see whales react to certain boat behaviors. And so usually the best thing to look for, and all of our local whale watch captains are trained, the ones that are part of our Whale Sense program for responsible whale watching are trained to look out for these changes in behavior. But if you're seeing a sudden change in behavior from a whale, so for example, we just talked about whales logging. If you approach a whale and you're at a safe distance for a while and the whale's logging, it's sleeping, resting for a few minutes, and then you suddenly come a little bit closer and you notice that the whale suddenly starts thrashing. That's a pretty sudden change in behavior. So that likely means that the whale is reacting to your boat. Whether or not it's scared, again, we don't know. It is just a noticeable reaction of some sort. What I can also tell you to follow up on this just a little bit more is that there are whale watching guidelines in place to try to avoid situations like that happening. So our ultimate goal when we're out there watching the whales is to make sure that we're not disturbing them at all. We just want them to be doing what they want to be doing while they're out there in their ocean homes. So any vessels that are out on the water, I encourage you to look up the whale watching guidelines that are in place for your region so that you know what to look for and how to keep a safe distance from your local species.
Excellent, thank you. And I believe we have one more question for you, Monica, coming up. Let's see. Lauren, age 8, says, what do they eat? I'm going to assume Lauren means, what do whales eat? So go ahead, Monica.
Yeah, so this will have to be sort of a general answer because there's a lot of different species of whales, almost 90, when you include all the dolphins and porpoises that are out there too. And so just like humans, whales of different species have their favorite foods. And so obviously they're in the ocean. It's typically fish of some sort, although there are species that eat different things as well, like octopus or squid. So generally, and I'll comment mostly here about large baleen whales like the humpback whale and the blue whale, they are eating what we call small schooling fish. So if you're a really large whale, it might sound weird that they're going to eat small fish, but the idea here is that they're small schooling fish, which means that they travel in large schools and the whale can eat a whole bunch of them at one time. So for a large whale, they are eating, we're talking tons of food every single day to maintain their size, but the goal, it's easier for them to use their energy wisely. It's best for them to eat a whole school of fish at one time. So the smaller the fish, the more that they can eat at once. Just because I mentioned squid earlier, the octopus, squid and octopus. So the sperm whale is known for hunting some of these larger creatures. And so the sperm whales are a species that have teeth in their mouth, which means that they can bite and grab onto those larger fish. Whales like the humpback and the blue whale that I was just talking about previously, they don't have teeth in their mouth. They have something called baleen instead. And for anyone who's not familiar with baleen, it basically works like a big pasta strainer for a whale in the ocean to separate their food from the water. So that's also how they can eat a whole school of fish at one time. They're straining it from the water.
And how much do they eat in a day, roughly, given, let's say, a humpback or a blue whale?
Yeah, so I'm not fully an expert. I know I was introduced as one, and I appreciate that. We don't have blue whales around here, so I'm not quite as familiar with their diet. So I'll just speak to the humpback whale that I'm more familiar with. And estimates are that when they're in their feeding grounds, which is about half of the year, they're eating 1 to 2 tons of food every day if they can. So. Okay. That's a literal ton also, so it's 2,000 to 4,000 pounds.
Wow. You hear that, Lauren? 2,000 to 4,000 pounds a day. That's amazing. Well, thank you, Monica. I learn every day, which is fabulous about working with whale experts and learning experts. And I'll let you go off and do what you're doing right now. And next, I'm going to introduce Regina Asmutis Sylvia, and she's going to talk about other questions. Regina.
Hey, Douglas.
Good to see you. Regina is our senior biologist and executive director, and she's going to take a look at, we'll look at question number 4. Go ahead, question 4. Are blue whales still the largest animal in the history of the world, or have there been dinosaurs that have taken that title from them? From Takio R. Great question.
Great question, and I am by no means a dinosaur expert. So I tried to look at what I could find for information on the largest dinosaur. And from what I could find, that's the Argentinosaurus. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And theoretically, that particular type of dinosaur could reach lengths of 45 meters or about 150 feet. So that would be longer than a blue whale. The reported longest blue whale on record was 33 meters or almost 110 feet long. And most of the blue whales don't get that long, maybe 100 feet, but depending in the Antarctic, they're a little bit, that's where the larger blue whales are. So So theoretically, there's a dinosaur that is longer than a blue whale, but size isn't just about length. So based on the estimates of that particular dinosaur, they looked at some bones and they tried to figure out how much it might have weighed. And they're guessing between the scientists, the paleontologists were guessing between 77 and 110 tons. So pretty big, pretty amazing. However, an adult female blue whale in the Antarctic weighs about 130 tons.
Wow.
So if you look at overall size, blue whales still have the edge and they're still in the lead. But if you look at just length, they might have been edged out by a dinosaur from Argentina.
Fabulous. Thank you. I did not know that. And we'll still go with the blue whale as being our favorite, right? Okay. Yep. Question number 5. Go ahead. Let's take a look. How long do whales live? And what's the cause of whales dying before they die of old age? Good question. Depends on the species, I guess. Go ahead.
Exactly, and it's a lot of what Monica was talking about is that different answers for different species. And what's really cool about a lot of these questions is that we don't really know. We're still learning, and so people who want to get involved in the field of marine mammal science can help to answer some of the questions that we don't have definitive answers to yet. So different species do live for different lengths of time. Some of the shortest living species that we know of would be something like the harbor porpoise, and their average lifespan might be between 8 and 13 years, maybe up to 20 years in some cases. They have a very fulfilling life, although it's a little bit shorter than, say, the bowhead whale. And so right now the record holder for that for age in whales would be the bowhead whale. And based on some different ways of doing analysis, there's been whether it was spears found during Aboriginal subsistence whaling hunts or some genetic analysis and protein analysis, bowhead whales can live to be over 200 years old.
Wow.
So that's pretty amazing. And they are the longest lived that we know of. And the second part of the question, if I remember right, was why are they living as long as they can, or why are they dying early?
How do they, what are some of the factors that don't make, so they don't die of old age?
Causes them to die before old age. The simple answer is us, unfortunately, is humans. We share their habitats, and sometimes we share their habitats in a way that accidentally causes problems for them. For large whales, the way that they die most often before they get to their ripe old age is from either accidentally being hit by ships or accidentally becoming entangled in fishing gear, and those are unfortunately pretty common ways. There's habitat changes. There's prey issues if we're fishing a lot, or climate change has caused some problems too that exacerbate some of that, maybe dying a little bit earlier than they should be. For instance, if you look at North Atlantic right whales, they should be living into their, like a human lifespan almost, maybe at least into their 70s. But most of them aren't making it till 40. And unfortunately, that's because, again, of those accidental causes of death, like ship strikes and entanglements. Toxins are another issue. Ocean noise, they get stressed out, and stress is really bad, and stress can make all of us sick and can cause some problems with our heart or impact our immune system. So those things can all add up. I think that, one of the things to think about is if you understand what the problems are, then you can help to mitigate them. And that's part of our job at Whale and Dolphin Conservation, is to understand what those problems are and try and fix them. Because to me, one of the really cool things about a whale living out its full lifespan and dying the way that it's supposed to is that it becomes what's called a whale fall. And a whale fall literally means when the whale dies of natural causes and then sinks to the ocean bottom. And when it's down there, it takes lots and lots of carbon with it. So it's helping to fight climate change, but it also creates these really cool little mini ecosystems for lots of different species of worms and barnacles and crabs and things on the ocean bottom that you only find this tiny little, really specialized ecosystem in those whale falls. And so they're really important for the environment as well. So our job is to try and make sure that whales get to do their job in the ocean. And part of that job is living to a ripe old age, dying naturally, and becoming a whale fall.
Yeah, if the viewers want to take a look and Google whale fall video, it was Geographic or someone had
it's a very cool video. Yeah, I think it was last summer. Yeah.
And also, I think on Richard Attenborough's Ocean Planet, there was a little bit talk about a whale fall on about a 10-minute segment. fabulous, fabulous what they do for the ecosystem. All right, I think we're on question 5 or 6. Go ahead, let's take a look. How many North Atlantic right whales are now on the planet? From Jessica.
Thanks, Jessica. I'll give you both the really super simple answer and then the more complicated answer. So the super simple answer is about 400. That's how many North Atlantic right whales are remaining on the planet. The more complicated answer is that there at one point was somewhere between 9,000 and 21,000 North Atlantic right whales prior to whaling, and that's what wiped them out. By about 1935, there were fewer than 300 left. The populations did increase up until about 2010. So there were probably almost 500 at that point. And unfortunately, since 2010, the population has been in decline. And that's a species that we work very closely to try and protect. We have lots of programs and lots of efforts trying to help to recover North Atlantic right whales. And their biggest threats are, again, those accidental vessel strikes and those accidental entanglements in fishing gear. And so that's a big part of the work that we're doing. We can't give you an exact specific number. We can say it's about 400 because we can't obviously tell you every single right whale that's in the ocean and whether they're alive at any particular given time. So there's lots of aerial surveys that are done by a number of different organizations in the US and Canada. I just lost internet, so I don't know if I'm still connected.
Okay.
Am I still there?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go. We're having storms here, so it's
everything. We just lost. We lost electricity for a second. So they will photograph these animals. They put them in a catalog, and then there's a mathematical model that's used based on the years that they're cited and the frequencies that they're cited over a period of years, and that's how a determination is made on the overall population level.
Got it. Wow. So that's North Atlantic right whales, about 400, and we're really working hard studying them and their patterns and what they're doing, kind of policy work to enhance their habitats and making sure they don't get accidentally entangled. All right, the next question, let's take a look. How is climate change affecting whales?
I love this question. Actually going to add to it because it's how is climate change affecting whales and how are whales affecting climate change?
Okay.
I think it's like a little bit of a two-part question there. In my mind, a change in climate does impact whale distribution. So we know, as Monica was talking about before, that whales are coming into an area, particularly in the northern areas, to eat, and they're in search of food. And when they're looking for food, they're often looking for a particular kind of food and particular species of that they prefer. Those species and those kinds of food are shifting because the waters in the ocean, particularly in the Gulf of Maine, off New England where we are, is warming faster here than it is in most of the rest of the world. So that's causing their food to shift. And as their food shifts, a lot of the whales are moving into different habitats to find the food where it's moved to, or find different food if they can't find what they're used to. Sometimes, unfortunately, that's causing them to go into places where protections don't exist from things like we've been talking about, those accidental ship strikes and entanglements. So we're now looking at some of those distributional shifts, figuring out where protections need to be moved to try and make sure that the whales are safe wherever they go. So that's how climate change is affecting them. But how they're affected by, or how they're affecting climate change is actually they can help us mitigate climate change. So whales do this, my favorite thing to talk about, their coolest role in to me. And I credit so much and I'm so grateful to Dr. Joe Roman and his colleagues from University of Vermont who did this research, is that whales are the ocean's gardeners. And it's amazing. So near the surface of the ocean is a free-floating forest of phytoplankton. There's these tiny little plant-like organisms that float around the ocean, and they photosynthesize just like plants on land do. So they take the sun's energy and they take carbon dioxide and they mix it with some nutrients and do a chemical reaction. That's how they get their food. And in doing that, they also give us oxygen. So about every other breath you take, half your oxygen comes from phytoplankton. They can't, because they have to stay by the ocean surface, they can't root in the soil the way plants on land can, and that's how plants on land get their nutrients. So they need nutrients brought to them. And one of the most important ways that they get that nutrients and that delivery of nutrients of things like phosphorus and iron is through whales coming to the surface for their bathroom breaks. So whales can't poop under pressure. So they come to the surface to take that break. And when they do, they fertilize that garden of phytoplankton at the surface. So just like you might fertilize your garden in the yard, whales help us fertilize the phytoplankton. That's what helps you breathe. And that also helps to fight climate change because phytoplankton take in all that carbon. And then phytoplankton only live for a short time. It's very fulfilling, 2 or 3 days, maybe before they sink to the ocean bottom and take that carbon with them. That's what carbon sequestration means. And so they pull tons and tons of carbon out of the atmosphere. So phytoplankton is super important in our life. We need it. Phytoplankton need whales. So therefore we need whales and we need whale poop. And that's how they help to mitigate climate change. So it's one of the most amazing things I think that we've learned. And I love talking about whale poop.
We knew Regina wanted to talk about whale poop. That's why we were looking for that question. But most importantly, something I didn't know was every other breath you take is due to the ocean, due to phytoplankton, due to whales. So trees and plants on land, whales, phytoplankton in the ocean.
Yep.
All right, we'll take a look at the next question. Let's see what we have. What's the best college to attend if I want to become a marine biologist and work with marine mammals? From Tessa, age 11. Tessa, Regina's going to try to answer your question. It's not an easy one. Go ahead.
So I love it. It's a great question, and I'm really excited that Tessa would want to get into this field. We're so excited about anybody who wants to start to study and become somebody who works in protecting and studying marine mammals. Interesting though, that you don't need to be a marine biologist. I've actually never taken a marine biology class in my life. So my degrees are in biology and chemistry. You can take marine biology. It's much broader. You can study lots and lots of different things. But I wouldn't worry so much, to be honest with you, about what college you went to. And I would really consider what the best college is for you and what is the best fit for you and your family financially. Because if you go study biology, you can do it in the middle of the country. You don't have to come to the coast to do it. You still get a degree in biology, and that's okay. So I wouldn't worry about the college you went to. What I would focus on much more are things like doing internships. And so Whale and Dolphin Conservation offers an internship, and it's hands-on experience. There's lots of organizations that offer different kinds of internships. So you could go out into the field, you could do stranding internships, you could come work with us and collect some data and learn about marine mammal policy and education. You could go work with field research that might be going off to sea for a little while. But those internships give you the experience, and to make sure for you too that you really do want to do this, if it's what you want. So you can get lots of experience, but it also helps you network. It helps you meet people in the field. And the whale world is growing. It's certainly grown since I was in it, but it's still a pretty small field. And getting to know people is a really good way to try and get jobs and look at opportunity. So I would worry less about the college you pick. Make sure that's a good fit for you. And spend a little bit more time trying to figure out where the intern opportunities might be for you, and that would be a much bigger help.
Thanks, Regina. I know that Nicholas in the UK asked us about whaling. It was a more whale-specific question for the UK, and we're going to defer to our experts in the UK who aren't on this broadcast, but we will send you an answer, Nicholas. I know you're listening out there. Thanks to Monica. Thanks to Regina. Thanks to Sheehan Family Companies. Thanks for Mass Environmental Trust. We have one more thing to talk about, which is our giveaway. 2 lucky people will win an Ocean Soul sculpture. The rules are simple. You must live in the U.S., and you may only enter once. We'll do a live drawing on June 30th at 12 o'clock and let you know who the winners are. Go to whales.org and click on Enter to Win an Ocean Soul sculpture button. The value of the sculpture is about $200. On our homepage, you also find a link to the calendar for all our Orca Action Month activities, because June is Orca Action Month. The theme this year is Orca Love, and there's so many ways to show this endangered population of just over 70 whales that you care. Thanks for joining us today, supporting our work to create a world where every whale and dolphin lives safe and free. And we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.